Christina, May Thomas, and David Gabriel Watson tied the knot and exchanged rings on October 11, 2003 in Birmingham, Alabama. Tina was born in Germany on February 13, 1977. In the late 90s, her family relocated to Birmingham, Alabama, the US. Since childhood, Tina has struggled with paroxysmal tachycardia, a condition that caused palpitations, fainting spells, and seizures. On May 16, 2001, Tina underwent surgery, after which her heart issues subsided and she felt much better. On New Year's Eve, she met her future husband, David Watson, at a party. They started dating, and one day, David asked Tina's father for his blessing to marry her. With her father's approval, the couple married on October 11, 2003. A few days after their wedding, Tina and Gabe embarked on their honeymoon to Australia. They planned to go diving at the Great Barrier Reef in the Coral Sea of northern Queensland. This destination was no coincidence. Gabe had long dreamed of visiting the Great Barrier Reef and had asked his parents for the trip as a graduation gift. According to Gabe's mother, he inspired Tina with his dream, and they chose to honeymoon there. Gabe's grandmother and father funded the trip, contributing $10,000. Gabe was an experienced diver, having completed over 50 dives and a rescue diving course in 2001. It's worth noting that Tina got into diving because of Gabe's ultimatum: "If you want to see me on weekends, you have to go diving with me." By the time of their trip, Tina had only done 11 dives, all of which were in a pool. For their trip, Tina and Gabe purchased $4,000 worth of new equipment on credit. Tina's instructor, Craig, later commented that he had never seen anyone so unprepared for a dive. Tina panicked, and they had to bring her to the surface. She admitted that she hated diving but did it to keep Gabe happy. "She was probably the most panicky diver I've ever worked with," Craig reported. However, Tina improved with each dive, and another instructor, Jumblin, noted that she had successfully completed the basic course. On October 13, 2003, Tina and Gabe arrived in Sydney, where they stayed for a week, explored the city, and called their families. On October 21, they flew to Townsville in northern Queensland. Gabe later remarked that the first part of their honeymoon was for Tina, while the second part was for him. Before leaving the USA, Gabe contacted a company to arrange a dive at a wreck site. He informed the representative that they would only need air cylinders as they were bringing their own equipment from America. Around 10 p.m. on October 21, 2003, Tina and Gabe, along with other divers, boarded a ship and left the port of Townsville at about 11:30 p.m. There were 12 crew members on board. Volunteer sailor Louise Johnston observed the couple preparing and noted that they looked very awkward, as if it were their first time seeing diving equipment. Gabe struggled to put the regulator on correctly, while Tina tried to help, but he remained very controlling. She appeared visibly nervous. The dive company staff recorded the details of each diver's experience, briefed them on equipment operation and safety requirements both on board and in the water. Although Wade, the vessel's dive director, usually interviewed divers separately, he interviewed Tina and Gabe together. On October 22, Tina and Gabe woke up around 6 a.m. They had breakfast together at 7:15 and attended a dive briefing at 8:30. Shortly after, the instructors dove underwater first to set up the line tank. Instructor Larissa noted that while the current was strong, it wasn't dangerous for experienced divers, and visibility ranged from 6 to 22 meters. According to the dive plan, Tina and Gabe were to dive to the bow of the sunken ship with 4 other divers. A few minutes into the dive, Tina and Gabe returned to the ship. Gabe explained that his wrist-worn computer had malfunctioned. Witnesses recalled Gabe mentioning that his computer began beeping at a depth of 2 meters, prompting their return. In front of the instructors, Gabe opened the computer's battery compartment, reinserted the battery correctly, and the device resumed working. Witnesses noted that Tina appeared calm and positive, showing no signs of anxiety at that moment. For divers, a dive computer functions like a sophisticated watch, measuring time and depth, indicating how long you can stay at your current depth, and warning you if you stay too long or ascend too quickly. Some models also track and display the amount of air in the tank. According to Gabe, when he and Tina returned on board, she complained about having difficulty diving and requested extra weight, which she was given, though this hasn't been confirmed. Gabe also stated that they were on board for about 10 to 15 minutes, a claim corroborated by instructor David Lampsing. Around 10 a.m., they began their second dive. What happened next is known only from Gabe's account, as no one else could confirm or deny his version of events. Tina descended first, which was sensible since the more experienced diver, Gabe, could keep an eye on her from above. Following them into the water was the most experienced person on the boat, Wade. According to printouts from Wade's computer, Gabe and Tina entered the water about 30 seconds before he did, beginning their dive to a depth of 14 meters. It took them 3 minutes to descend, during which they moved away from Wade, though Gabe claims they made eye contact. The couple were at the rear of the wreck, about 14-15 meters deep, when Tina signaled to Gabe that she wanted to surface. Seeing his wife's growing panic, Gabe took her hand and tried to assist her. He decided to inflate her vest, which would help her float. To do this, he let go of Tina's hand, and when she began to sink, he grabbed her belt instead. Instead of attempting to inflate her waist again, Gabe held her close. Tina's eyes were wide with fear, and she gestured frantically, even slapping Gabe at one point. The slap dislodged his mask, filling it with water. Gabe released Tina to adjust his mask. Noticing that her regulator was out of her mouth, he reached for a spare regulator. He later told police that after Tina's death, he found the mouthpiece of her main regulator was missing, likely dislodged by the impact. In the midst of these efforts, Gabe lost hold of Tina's hand, and after taking a breath, he saw Tina sinking. He made a brief attempt to swim after her, but his computer indicated he had only descended a couple of meters. Gabe decided not to pursue her further, believing she was sinking too quickly. All the divers later agreed that Gabe not only could have pursued Tina, but should have, as they had just started the dive and he had enough air to follow her to the bottom. Gabe had every chance to save his wife. His dive computer showed rapid breathing as he began surfacing. When he reached the other divers, he claimed he tried to get their attention, but they did not notice his efforts. He recounted approaching a diver of Asian appearance at the bottom, but when investigators questioned the two Asian divers, Mr. Kim and Mrs. Chun, neither confirmed Gabe's story. One diver remarked on Gabe's actions, noting that he not only failed to chase his wife to the bottom, but also avoided risking his life. The investigating police pointed out that Gabe did not ascend quickly. His computer's printout showed no violation status, indicating that he made the required decompression stop and didn't surface promptly. When Gabe surfaced, two sailors, Brian and Craig, were still on the boat. They radioed the rescue team and the divers, immediately donning the gear to begin an emergency dive. Meanwhile, Wade, 7 minutes into his dive, was the first to spot the motionless diver lying at the depth of 24 meters. He swam directly to Tina Watson and found her unconscious. During questioning, Wade clarified that Tina's body was 15-20 meters from the bow and 10 meters from the wreckage, though he later identified a location much further from the wreckage. Tina was lying on her back, not breathing, with her eyes open. Wade pressed the purge button to force air into her mouth and used his left hand to tilt her head back to open her airway. Holding Tina against him, Wade pulled her to the surface, ascending much faster than Gabe, in just 2 minutes. Emergency resuscitation on the ship was carried out by at least 2 doctors who performed CPR on Tina for 40 minutes, but it was unsuccessful. Tina passed away. Her husband's behavior during the resuscitation and the return trip was curious. Eyewitnesses reported that while efforts were being made to save Tina, Gabe made sobbing noises as if crying, stood off to the side, and occasionally smiled. Some also noted that during the return journey, Gabe played cards and didn't comment on what had happened. Only as they approached Townsville did Gabe ask the crew for permission to address the passengers. He began with, "As you know, my wife died today." Then he said, "It sucks," and walked away. Tina's body was taken to the Townsville mortuary. On October 23, Professor David Welsham found no suspicious circumstances surrounding Tina's death. He recorded that there was no evidence of myocarditis, coronary fibrosis, or a recent heart attack, though the coronary arteries showed a small amount of atheroma. Her neck was bruised and a small amount of fluid with blood stains was found in each nostril. There was also gas in the blood vessels in various parts of her body. The lung examination revealed moderate edema, while radiology indicated evidence of air embolism with significant volumes of air in all intercerebral arteries. There was no alcohol detected in the blood, but minor traces of drugs, such as paracetamol and ibuprofen, were found. These painkillers are also known to alleviate seasickness. The pathologist noted that these drugs couldn't have contributed to the deceased condition. He attributed Tina's cause of death to drowning, suggesting that she may have been deprived of oxygen before drowning. The prolonged investigation caused distress for Tina's family and her husband, Gabe, who began to visibly show signs of nervousness. In an interview, he even expressed to the police, "I'm sure I had a hand in Tina's death, so they are doing everything they can to prove it. They're just collecting evidence." It became evident to investigators that Gabe's explanations were unreliable, prompting them to give him an opportunity to clarify the situation. However, Gabe often appeared confused in his statements and frequently altered the story. Detective Inspector Harry Campbell remarked, "I spent a considerable amount of time scrutinizing Gabe's written and verbal statements and noted numerous inconsistencies, some of which were partially clarified in subsequent interviews, while others remained unresolved." Upon the return of the spoiled sport vessel to port, the police cordoned it off and confiscated Tina and Gabe's equipment. Passengers and crew were brought to the police station for questioning. Chief Constable Lawrence conducted a brief interview with Gabe, noting in his notebook that Gabe appeared shocked and occasionally cried. On the evening of October 22, Gabe phoned his father, David, with Detective Paula Snyder present. During the call, Gabe spoke first to his father, then to his mother. He complained to his mother about ear pain and asked his father to contact Tommy Thomas to inform him of Tina's death, possibly to avoid facing Thomas in person. During the first interrogation at the station, Gabe started demanding his computer back. He reasoned that the computer was expensive and had been borrowed on credit. On his way out of the police station, Gabe asked if he could spend the night on the spoiled sport ship because he had already paid for it. After being refused, he demanded that the company that organized the tour book him a hotel. With a smile, Gabe remarked that the $7,000 they charged for diving two people and at least one of the same could be refunded. Gabe ended up getting a room for one night. Tommy Thomas, already aware of his daughter's death, attempted to call Gabe in the evening. After several unsuccessful attempts, Gabe answered from the hotel room. 3 people were listening to this conversation at the same time: Gabe himself, his wife Mateen, and their youngest daughter, Holland. Tina's father, recalling this conversation, said that Gabe claimed to have held Tina and called out to her while they were trying to revive her on the boat. He stated that he was by her side the entire time and did everything he could to save her. On October 24, 2003, Gabe's mother arrives. At the same time, he finds himself a lawyer. Gabe, according to her, went to the Townsville mortuary to examine Tina's body. Detective Lawrence was out of Gabe's sight, but close to the door, which was left open. He would later tell the inquest, "I heard Gabe say in a low, mumbling voice, 'I'm sorry.' And there was a short pause. 'I didn't mean to hurt you.' There was another slight pause. 'I shouldn't have held you.' There was another slight pause. 'I'm sorry, I couldn't stop it.' That was the end of what I heard," the detective reported. On November 1st, 2003, Gabe and his mother flew home. Tina's body was with them on the plane. They had to travel via Townsville, Brisbane, Auckland, Los Angeles, Atlanta, and then on to Birmingham. In Auckland, Gabe complained of severe ear pain and was taken to Auckland City Hospital. Doctors found he had no inquiries or illnesses, but this episode delayed Gabe, and Tina's body was accompanied only by his mother. Virtually all investigators of the case are leaning towards Gabe lying to avoid seeing Tina's father. Tina's funeral was held on November 5, 2003. Tina's friend, Amanda, also attended the funeral. In court, in 2012, Amanda claimed that Gabe smiled cheerfully and said something like, "At least her wrists stay just as sexy." He took off Tina's wedding ring, put it on his finger, took off her earrings, and handed everything to Tina's father. Here, it's important to dwell on the testimony of the couple's relatives and inner circle. According to them, Tina and Gabe's relationship was not that of a truly happy couple in love. Tina's father recalled that when Gabe came to ask for Tina's hand in marriage, when asked a couple of simple questions by his future father-in-law, "Do you love her?" Gabe shrugged and said he refused to answer. When Tina's father tried to talk to his daughter about the same thing, they heard that Tina was ready to marry anyone as long as she wasn't considered an old maid with a slew of failed relationships behind her back. All those with whom the couple interacted during their time in Australia speak of Gabe as overbearing, egoistical, nervous. Divers noted that he did not behave at all like a spouse in love, constantly reproached Tina, cruelly joked about her. The taxi driver who drove Gabe and Tina to the marina before the boat departed was also questioned. He reported that Tina and Gabe were sitting far apart and Tina was crying. In 2005, Gabe showed up at the cemetery and twisted the plastic flowers attached to Tina's grave. Tina's father repeatedly complained to local police that the flowers he regularly brought to his daughter's grave were disappearing. A video camera was installed, and it was even shown in court. In 2008, the footage shows Gabe coming to the grave and removing all the flowers. But why? The investigation came to the conclusion that Gabe had given Tina the smallest sized scuba tank at the time of their dive and had taken a larger tank for himself. There was also some evidence that Gabe had lost Tina somewhere on the bottom. And actually, Gabe was in no hurry to surface and call for help, nor did he do anything to rescue his wife and pull her out of the water. He later did not explain this moment in any way. Experts state that while Tina was alive, She used up to 60 liters of oxygen per minute. This indicates a great deal of panic. Experts believe that at some point, Gabe temporarily cut off Tina's oxygen supply. In the first 3 minutes, as they descended to the surface and swam towards the wreckage of the ship, he was unable to carry this out as he could have been spotted by Wade, who was only a few meters behind. Gabe was finally formally charged on November 28, 2008. A warrant was signed for the arrest of the accused. On June 5, 2009, a trial took place. Gabe pleaded guilty to the negligent death of Tina. Watson was sentenced to 12 months in an Australian prison. In October 2009, an Australian court extended Gabe's prison sentence to 18 months. And in November 2010, the trial began in America. On February 13, 2012, Gabe was charged in a Birmingham court with the first-degree murder of Tina. The prosecutor insisted that the crime was planned and motivated by a quarrel and a desire to cash in an insurance policy. The investigation stated that Gabe planned the wedding trip, the crimes in advance, forced Tina to start scuba diving lessons, confused testimony about what happened at the bottom, and never presented a clear version. Gabe also planned the crime for monetary gain, insurance payments. Besides, he also asked Tina to make him the beneficiary should anything happen to her. In addition, Gabe took Tina's expensive engagement ring and all of her belongings, sold them, and made a monetary gain. Gabe was trained to rescue drowning men, but took no steps to save his wife. One of the doctors who tried to resuscitate Tina said, "It surprised us that she had no water. If someone is underwater and drowning, they usually have water when they breathe in." The whole thing looked like Tina had just suffocated. Crew members present, when Tina was resuscitated, said pretty much the same thing. Gabe surfaced, reported that his wife had drowned, and without waiting for the results of the search, retired to his cabin. Further, he was not in the vicinity of his wife, but hanging around. Watson didn't approach his wife until after her death had been confirmed. During the final trial, Gabe was given the floor. "I may be guilty of not doing enough to save her, but I comfort myself that I did what I did. I can't change it, so I just have to accept it and get on with my life. People judge me, but they don't know me. The scariest thing was when I boarded the ship after I couldn't save my wife. It was the scariest situation of my life. I didn't know what was going on, and I could only see the fright in her eyes. And then I found out about the criminal prosecution. I'll never forget the moment when my lawyer informed me that I was being charged with the crime. I had spent an insane amount of money, over $500,000 on attorneys, forensics, and other things, and I was being accused of wanting insurance benefits. Yeah, I've already spent more than that. Tina's parents are basing their feelings about me on incorrect information. I don't hold it against them for that. They blame me for rushing into remarriage. Hostie, are you serious? I got married 3 years after Tina's death, even though I started dating my current wife Kim a year after the event. I don't care if anyone doesn't like it. My wife supports me in everything, and she's cool with my past. She knows that Tina and I were madly in love, and she lets me keep her photos and videos. I've been accused of being angry and aggressive towards Tina. Talk to my friends and to my wife Kim. I'm not mean. I'm just a normal person, dreaming of living a lone life. Final jury verdict: not guilty by reason of insufficient evidence. The charges against Gabe were dropped. He currently resides with his wife Kim in Birmingham. That's the story, folks. Do you think Gabe is to blame for Tina's death, or is it a coincidence? Write your opinions in the comments. Thank you for watching. I recommend you check out the other stories as well. Click right now. See you soon.